I do appreciate that the Kraken noticed and were thoughtful enough to give a subtle nod to the channel passing 13,000 subscribers, but if they were going to do it, it would have been nice if it was like 13 goals or 13,000 shots on goal and not 13 shots on goal, which is by far the fewest the Kraken have ever put on goal in a single game. What's Kraken, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where in spite of the Kraken shooting the least that they ever have in a single game on net, they still managed to get a point out of this game as they do fall in overtime 3-2 to the New York Rangers. And we'll talk about that shot total, which is a historic low again for the Kraken and somewhat significantly so, but this was also a fun game coming into it for the Kraken for a couple of reasons. One, it is the debut of the third jersey, the black jersey, which I would be wearing right now if I had mine, so I don't have that quite yet, but we'll have it hopefully for at least some point in the season. When the Kraken play these games, maybe I'll break it out a time or two, or at least have it in the background. I thought they looked pretty good on ice. I would say that I've warmed to them a bit since they were first announced and I put out that original video, which I had some mixed feelings about them at the time, and I still don't think that they are incredible. They don't blow me away or anything like that, but I think they're pretty cool, and the black of the abyss thing and the glow in the dark, it's all fun. And while I wish they would have maybe done a little bit more leaning into the glow in the dark part of it as far as the on ice production, I mean, obviously they're not going to play with the lights off, although is kind of funny that it was against the Rangers, and the last time the Kraken played the Rangers in Seattle, or maybe it was 2 seasons ago that happened, but I think it was the last time. Either way, one of the times the Kraken played the Rangers in Seattle was the game where half of the ice lights went out, and so they had to switch ends between, or in the middle of periods, because the lights were out on the ice. So kind of funny they're playing the Rangers with the glow-in-the-dark jerseys for the first time. All of that I think I actually mentioned in the first video, but regardless, it would have been nice to see a little bit more leaning into the glow-in-the-dark part, but it was a little bit different of a game intro, and still fun to see those jerseys out there. I will say the matte helmets look very nice. I do like the matte helmets. And yeah, all in all, pretty good as far as that's concerned. Also fun, though, for the Kraken, and much more notable as far as the on-ice production is concerned, or the on-ice product for the team, is that it was also the first time this season that we got to see Kaapo Kakko back in action, as he makes his return after suffering the broken hand from a bad chop during one of the preseason games against the Flames from some nobody that I don't even think bothered making the team. I shouldn't say bothered making the team, but didn't make the team. So yeah, the only impact he really had on this NHL season was breaking Kakko's hand and costing him 10 games at the start of it. But he gets to play in this game and start his season not with Beniers and Catton, although if you're going to take someone off that line, it probably would have been Catton. Instead, Catton's been playing pretty well so far, so they keep him with Beniers and Eberle, and instead start Kakko on a line with Wright and Marchment. Although that did change as the game went along. They start shuffling some of the lines, especially down the lineup. I think the first line largely stayed together, but lines 2, 3, and 4 were shuffled around a bit to try and get something going offensively, as the Kraken were having a very hard time generating offense, getting the puck into the Rangers' end, and then even once they were there, doing anything to make Shesterkin work whatsoever. Again, 13 shots on goal, and they went into the third with 9, so yeah, didn't really get a lot of shots in the third either. So I guess all the shuffling didn't really help generate much, but still good to see Kakko back out there. We'll see what shuffling they might do to try and get a little bit more offense going. The 13 shots as a whole in this game, 12 of those in regulation. One of those comes from overtime. Actually, maybe even 2 of them did. They might have had 11 coming into the overtime period. Regardless, not very many coming out of a game where, even though they had the big third period to come back and get the overtime loss point in the previous game against Montreal, they came into that third period with just 10 shots on goal. So this is not a team that has been generating very much offense here over the last couple of games, even though they've still managed to find a way to squeak 2 loser points out of it. Anyway, with all that having been said, unfortunately it didn't turn out to be the night of Kaapo Kakko, which it kind of felt like the storyline was there for that to happen, with him returning to play in the first night of the new third jersey against his old team, the Rangers. It was right there, but for understandable reasons, playing his first game of the season, his first meaningful game since April. and also playing on a new line with guys that he really hasn't played very much with. I mean, I don't even know how much he's practiced with Wright and Marchment in a line. Most of the preseason, he was still skating with Beniers, so I don't know how much experience there was there, familiarity with that line, and it kind of showed, I think, to some extent, but it's not like the rest of the team was really getting any more going, so I don't know how much of that you can really put on that line combination, and more just the Kraken in general as a team have struggled to generate offense aside from the third period against Montreal. I suppose, though, we should actually get into the game itself and spend a little bit of time, probably not as much as we normally would, on the recap part of this one. Things don't get off to a great start for the Kraken. They pretty much let the Rangers have the puck for the first 4, 5, maybe even 6 minutes of the game. Nice thing for the Rangers, they do let the defensive pairing, which this is a pairing that they've actually been running with, of Carson Soucy and Will Borgen, start the game for them. I don't know if that's second or third pair for the Rangers defensively, but the ex-Kraken pair is together in New York playing meaningful minutes for them on the back end. And fortunately for the Kraken, they are at least able to keep New York from getting anything terribly dangerous on net, but it doesn't take that long before the Rangers get their first power play of the game, which the Kraken do actually a pretty good job of killing off. They do allow one pretty good chance. It's a very similar play to one of the ones that Montreal scored on in one of their power plays, but the Kraken managed to survive not just the first minute of a penalty kill, but actually the second minute as well. Unfortunately, though, in spite of the actually successful kill and overall pretty good kill from the Kraken, back at 5-on-5, it only takes a couple more minutes for the Rangers to eventually open up the scoring anyway. When they get into the Kraken zone, don't really even get that set up. It's still kind of as they're entering, and they start to get some guys deeper in the zone, but it doesn't really matter. A shot from well out, way up at the point, does come with a moving screen, so Decord doesn't see the shot coming. Just he sees that there's going to be a shot. He throws his glove up in the air where he thinks the shot is going, and does get a good amount of it, but not all of it. The puck ends up bouncing off the top of his glove and then going over his shoulder and into the net behind him. I think there's a chance that this puck might have been going high over the net anyway, so if Decord just doesn't see it at all, doesn't get his glove on it whatsoever, it might not have ended up in the net. It's just an unfortunate bounce for the Kraken, and the Rangers have the 1-0 lead. I will say, while the Rangers do get the Rangers get a fortunate bounce there, an unfortunate one for the Kraken, as the night would go along, the Kraken got pretty lucky. I'd say overall the puck luck was heavily in Seattle's favor in this game. A lot of what could have easily been goals on chances, passes across Decord's face or rebounds out to the far side, chances on the back door for the Rangers, and they would either miss the net, have the puck take a weird bounce over a stick. The luck more than balanced out back towards the Kraken, but at least in this instance, to get the Rangers their first goal, it's a pretty unlucky one that ends up past Decord. Still, the Kraken pretty quickly end up on their first power play of the game, and while the penalty kill has been nothing short of a significant liability to this point in the season, the power play has actually been pretty good, and it continues to hopefully heat back up here after a little bit of a lull at the end of the road trip. They're back on the board here to tie the game, as the first unit out on the ice cycles the puck a couple. They did get cleared out and had to re-enter, but not long after they re-enter the offensive end. Cycle the puck a couple of times, then Dunn passes it down to Stevenson, who skates it to the low faceoff circle before sniping it right to the far top corner past Shesterkin. An absolutely perfectly placed shot. Yeah, Shesterkin on his best night still probably makes that save, but from Stevenson, it's a beautiful wrist shot, perfectly placed to get the Kraken the power play goal and tie things up at 1. A 1-1 tie game that would last all of 1 minute and 1 second, as the Rangers, pretty much right after the Kraken finish, the announcement of the goal finishes, and yeah, the cheering has started to die down. The Rangers on a rush back the other way. A bad turnover in the neutral zone from the Kraken leads to a 3-on-2 rush, and then a shot from down the middle is saved. Well, I shouldn't say easily by Decord, but it's one that Decord's never going to let that shot in. But what he does allow somewhat uncharacteristically here is a pretty uncontrolled rebound out to the far side, which he wasn't ready for. Usually, if we see Decord let up a rebound, he does a pretty good job of controlling it out to where he's expecting it to go. And I mean, more often than not, we see him just freeze pucks even when they're shot low at his pads. He has a pretty good ability to freeze things, or yeah, at least control the rebound. That doesn't happen here. It rebounds where it doesn't seem like he's expecting it to go whatsoever, out to the far side, and then it's just poked in by Laba crashing the far side, and it's 2-1 Rangers as they take the lead right back from the Kraken. So even though the Kraken were able to respond with the power play goal the first time, they allow a quick response right back the other way, and then their response to that is to go back to doing basically nothing offensively. They might have gotten one more shot on goal, maybe two low danger ones to the end of the period, but nothing that has really a chance of ending up in the net to tie things. So we go to the second with the Kraken outside of the power play looking pretty dead in the water as far as transition game or offense is concerned, and down one. Now, as far as offense is concerned for the Kraken, the one period of this game that went fairly well for them, where they started to look like they were going to actually wake up into this game and play some of it in New York's end of the ice, does come right at the start of the second period. The Kraken play a pretty good start to the second period, still having some trouble getting the high danger looks, getting traffic out in front of the net and that kind of stuff, but they're at least through a couple of pretty good shifts in the offensive end here early in the period, able to hem the Rangers in far away from their bench. And eventually, as the Kraken cycle with their bench pretty close to them here, it's Brandon Montour skating on after the Kraken do a full change while in the offensive end. Schwartz just passes the puck up to him as he skates off the bench. He winds up and blasts it past the glove hand of Shesterkin before he can react into the near side top corner. Actually, kind of just middle of the near side. This is definitely one that on his game, Shesterkin, we'd see him make this save. But tonight, the Kraken, unfortunately, just didn't really test him enough, but he didn't have the reaction time to get this one. Montour stays hot and ties the game for the Kraken with his fourth now of the season. Nope, just third. He has only scored in these last two games, but he has scored 3 times. And the Kraken, in spite of their inability to generate very much offense, generate some here in the start of the second to get things tied up at 2. And this is the point where I'd love to tell you that the Kraken, who also had a power play very early on in the second before this goal goes in at 5-on-5, that they actually did have a couple good looks to even the game up on that power play, going 2 for 2 on the night. They aren't quite able to, but they at least get that offensive momentum started and then capitalize on it here with this 5-on-5 goal for Montour. I'd love to tell you that they keep that momentum going and just start to really take away this second period and get a lead maybe, and then hopefully build on that lead. But as we know from 13 shots on goal in total, that doesn't happen. The Kraken don't actually get another shot on goal for quite a while, and in fact end up sending the Rangers to a power play just a few minutes after tying the game, which the Rangers get a couple pretty good opportunities on, but Decord is up to the challenge, makes a couple good saves. I'm pretty sure one of the missed opportunities on the back door does happen on this power play, so the Kraken luck starts to come into play here, where there's a number of chances as the Rangers get more and more time even coming out of the power play through the back half of the second. They're spending a lot of time in the Kraken end of the ice and getting some pretty good looks, but weird bounces here and there, missed opportunities with bad shots or just swinging and missing at a puck, and Decord making a couple of very, very nice saves keep this game tied through the end of the second, and then also through the entire third. There's not really much to speak of in this third period. In fact, well, normally I'd say just, stick with the Seattle sports. I would not blame you for focusing more on the World Series game that was finishing up there as the third period was happening. In fact, there were, I will say, some people in the press bridge that might have been focusing a little bit more on the World Series game finish than a rather lackluster effort in this third period from the Kraken. I suppose, though, it is still worth mentioning that while they weren't playing very much offense and spending a lot of time in their own end, they were at least playing relatively well in their own end of the ice. Decord is up to any challenge that he has to face, but not a ton of high danger chances, at least that actually end up on net in this third period for the Rangers. For the Kraken, again, it was 2, maybe 3 shots on goal in the entire period, and most of those came towards the very end of the period when the Kraken finally started to get a little bit of something going in the final couple of minutes. And then in the final couple of seconds, as the Kraken have a good look, Montour winds up and then fakes the shot and instead looks for another shooting lane as the final second ticks off, and we go to overtime. Instead of Montour firing off the shot and at least giving the Kraken a chance, you never know, Montour has the hot hand. If anybody was going to shoot the puck and get it through a crowd and past Shesterkin in the final second, it probably would be Montour. You got to shoot that puck there, though. And to be perfectly fair, I know there's going to be some people that are just beside themselves wondering how Montour decided to not shoot that puck. The players don't necessarily, I mean, they can't see the clock. They don't know exactly how much time is left on it. So for Montour, in his head, I'm sure he's thinking there's probably still 5, maybe 10 seconds left to try to find a better shooting lane. But yeah, obviously there wasn't. And even still, after you've pretty much spent an entire game doing everything in your power to pass up good opportunities, and even the good opportunities you have just missed the net entirely. A few rush chances. Ryan Winterton put one wide. Stevenson put one wide at one point. There's a lot of missed opportunities and then opportunities just not taken. It would have been nice to at least make the opportunity. Give yourself a chance by shooting the puck. That doesn't happen, though, with Montour here at the end. So we head to overtime, where Decord does have to come up with another pretty good save early on in overtime. The Kraken, though, are able to get possession, get a pretty good look of their own. A shot on net saved by Shesterkin. That would be shot 13. And then back the other way, a bit of a lazy play or a bad read defensively. I don't know what it was, but what really should have been a 2-on-2 opportunity that's a lot easier to defend. Somehow the Kraken defended in such a way that it turns basically into just a 2-on-1. The pass gets through. Decord has to try to make one more heroic lunging save to the far side, but this one gets past him, and the Rangers do end up coming away with that extra point. So, again, in the end for the Kraken, I gotta say, I feel like the 1 point was kind of a gift, the way that they played this game, just not making much happen offensively. The chances they do get, they most often put wide or just opted to not actually shoot the puck at the net when they had the opportunity to. And then defensively, while there were some good moments, and Decord did have some good saves, again, I think Decord's stats are going to look a little bit unfair to how well he played in this game by the end of it, especially with the overtime goal. I think Decord had a pretty good night, but he just had to work too much and also still got bailed out on a few chances with some pretty good puck luck the Kraken had to not have a couple of very, very good A-plus looks for the Rangers end up not going on net, or not on net hard enough for Decord to not have a chance to make the save, if that makes sense. The point is the Rangers had more than enough opportunities, great A-plus chances where Decord wouldn't have had a chance that they just completely missed on. That this game could have easily been much uglier on the scoreboard than it did, and the Kraken probably should never have had the chance to even get to overtime and get that 1 point in the standings. Now, I will say, well, all of that is very true, and the Kraken definitely should have, could have, and need to going forward put on a much better offensive push and effort than they did in this game. You have to give a lot of credit to the Rangers defensively, who I think played a fantastic defensive game in this one, aside from the couple of rush chances they gave the Kraken that just didn't end up with shots on net. Aside from those couple of looks, for the most part, the Rangers, I think, did a very good job of limiting the Kraken chances when they were trying to generate offense. Certainly in the neutral zone, the Rangers were doing a good job of getting in passing lanes, breaking up passes. The Kraken helping them a little bit with some pretty careless turnovers, not only in the neutral zone, but actually in their end, which is something we haven't seen a lot from this Kraken defense. While they have not always been particularly crisp passing the puck tape to tape, usually when they have the bad, careless passes that lead to terrible turnovers, those have been generally in the offensive end or neutral zone, not so much in their end. There were definitely some of those in this game. But still, yeah, the Rangers, I think, played a fantastic defensive game. The offensive game was a little bit sloppy, but yeah, you do have to give them some credit here. And I suppose to go with the luck that the Kraken got as far as puck luck is concerned, not as lucky with the fact that the Rangers are finally starting to play like the team that they're supposed to be on paper, which isn't necessarily a world-beating team, not the challenging for a President's Trophy like they were a couple years ago Rangers, but still a much better team than they had been at the start of the season. This team was a complete mess through their first few games, but as they've gone on this road trip to the the West Coast, Western Canada, and now Seattle, they've certainly turned things around and started to look a lot better. Of course, the Kraken get them as they're making that turnaround and starting to build some confidence instead of when they were still playing like they wanted the first overall pick. But that's just how it goes. It turns out it might be getting the Blackhawks at a similar time when they're playing some of their best hockey, and now you got the Sharks right behind them who are coming off of, well, they'll play another game between now and then, but they just beat one of the best teams in the NHL in the Avalanche. So you're getting a couple of teams that look like they should be wins on the schedule, but they're young teams playing well at this point in time. So if the Kraken can't show up and play better than they have in these last couple of games, certainly the first two periods of the game against Montreal, and then pretty much all of this one, we could be in for some disappointing outings against two very beatable young teams in the Blackhawks and Sharks coming up. As far as that's concerned, it'll be interesting to see if the Kraken do decide to mix up the lines a little bit and try some different combinations to get something going offensively. Even the first line didn't really generate a lot offensively in this game. I still think Catton looks pretty good with the puck in the offensive end. He had a couple of not so great moments in the defensive end in this one. They gotta try and mix something in there to get some offense going. One game you can chalk that up to just, for whatever reason, it wasn't your night and you played against a team that was playing well defensively, but this is now two, kind of even most of 3 games in a row that the Kraken just have not had it offensively. They've not been, well, let's just say they haven't been scoring a whole heck of a lot, and even the scoring that they have done, while it's been timely and it's been enough to get them some overtime loss points, it's still been certainly on the high end as far as shooting percentage is concerned, and something that if you continue to play this way offensively, you're going to have a tough time scoring more than a goal or 2 per game. And even if Decord is playing well, and even if you're playing good defense in front of him, that's not going to lead to a whole lot of wins. The Kraken got to get something figured out here, trying to mix things up offensively. We'll see if they're able to do that against teams that aren't necessarily known for their defensive responsibility, with the Sharks and Blackhawks coming up. Until then, though, let's close this one out with the Kraken 3 stars. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide Kraken 3 stars after every regular season or playoff game, if they make the playoffs, then you can help support a little bit more than you already are by watching this point by going to the link down below and supporting on Patreon as well. I don't think we're getting 3 stars in this one for the second game in a row, but I will give the first star to Joey Decord. He got some help with some bounces, but also did enough to keep the Kraken in this game and give them a chance to win it if they had played really any kind of offense at any point in the game, or decided to shoot the puck when they were creating some offense. But yeah, he still is, I think, the primary reason that they got to overtime and got that 1 point. As far as the second star, yeah, we'll give one to Montour. In spite of the decision to not shoot the puck in the final couple seconds of regulation, which, who knows, maybe that just gets blocked on the way. There were a lot of block shots for the Rangers in this game. But you, again, at least have to give yourself the chance. Even though that's kind of the last taste left in your mouth, I think Montour played a pretty good game overall and had the 1 goal. He at least stays hot offensively, which is another reason you like to see him shoot the puck, because he has the hot stick right now. But I think he played well enough to give him the second star. I don't feel great about anybody as a third star. There weren't that many guys that played a terrible game. Dunn and Larson as a pair didn't look fantastic. Alexiak had probably his toughest game of the season so far. But nothing that was... There wasn't any, like, egregiously bad games. There's just a lot of kind of... as far as play from this team. So, yeah, we'll stick with the 2. Decord is 1. Montour is 2. If there's a third you want to throw in there, or maybe you don't agree with having any stars at all, then let me know down in the comments section below. Maybe something that'll help you get the Kraken going is just having, again, a little bit more of a routine and a schedule coming up that's keeps them in the action. Again, the 1 game in the last 6 days is going to be pretty abnormal as this season goes along, so maybe the Kraken just kind of got out of rhythm with all these extra days off at home. You'd think that would give them a chance to rest a little bit more and come out with a little bit more energy and effort, but maybe they just need to be playing games every other day, and that is a chance that they're going to get here over this next stretch. So hope for the best and get a couple more wins. At the very least, the Kraken still have yet to lose in regulation at home. Until next time, though, stay safe out there. Be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken.